We're nearly about 120 people now. So while we wait for a couple of minutes for others to join in, firstly, it'll be great to for all the participants who are here, if in the chat box you can quickly mention what city you're joining in from. It'll be great for us to understand across what cities, what countries are you all here from. So just in the chat box, if you go on and type, so we've got people from Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Kolkata, Indore. Wow, that's quite a flurry of places. Mangalore, Vijayawada, Allahabad. Great to have you all. Wonderful to see all of you here. Patna, Hyderabad again as well. Great. Kerala, fantastic. So we're nearly about 170 people in the room. I'll wait for another 30 seconds. We've got someone from Pakistan as well. Welcome to the session. We'll wait for another minute before we start with the session. Just in the meantime, a couple of sort of house points. If any of you have any questions for our speakers for today, you can use the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions. Today's session is being held in partnership with Boston University. We're going to talk about how to demystify the US STEM admissions process. We've got two elite panelists with us here today from Boston University School of Engineering and Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. Just a little bit about BU as we hold on for a few more minutes for others to join. Firstly, about the BU College of Engineering. It is a community of students, faculty, and staff focused on advanced science and technology through research and discovery, and preparing students to be technology leaders in the 21st century. It is a highly ranked school, and you'll hear a lot more about it in the presentation too. About the BU Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. It is the largest school at Boston University. Students attend from over 118 countries. And the alumni network spans over 300,000 people living across over 180 countries. So a really diverse and enriching experience. There is distinguished faculty committed to exemplary teaching and mentoring through and you also have access to scholarships and cutting edge research through multiple facilities. And our speakers today. So we've got Mark Khan, who's the Director for Masters, Marketing and Enrollment for the BU Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. And we've got Christy Miller, who's the Director for Professional Education and Corporate Outreach for BU College of Engineering. Lovely to have you both here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Great. So we're over 240 people in the room now. We'll sort of get started. Great again, just to have you all here from across the country and actually multiple countries. If any of you have questions, I know Disha, Gitika, you've posted some questions on the chat. If you would like to post them into the Q&A section, I will try and take them in the Q&A aspect of the session. So what's going to happen throughout the next hour is first, I'm going to hand over to Mark and Christy to talk to us a little bit about the application process and how you could ace that by demystifying the journey. We'll then have time for Q&A. So the questions that you post in the Q&A section now will be taken up. So make sure that they are clear, they're succinct, and we'll try and take through as many as we can. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Mark and Christy to take the stage. Mark, Christy.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. So thank you for joining us. My name is Mark Khan, and I'm joined by my illustrious colleague, Kirsty Miller from the College of Engineering. We are going to be going through a few quick things with you, a little introduction about both of our institutions and also Boston University in general. And then we're going to hop into the application components, chatting about what we're looking for specifically. But most of our session will be focused on the personal qualities because we feel like this can be the most confounding for students. And then we will end with the Q&A. So let's hop into it. So just a little bit about Boston University. I know Paras shared a bit of this as well, but we are a Tier 1 research institution. There are 17 different schools that fall under the BU umbrella, 36,000 students, over 14,000 of which are graduate students, and a lot of faculty and staff to make sure that our students are comfortable on campus. Over 140 countries are represented on the campus, and there are over 340,000 in our global alumni network. So a little bit about rankings. As Paras mentioned, we are a highly ranked institution. My gripe with rankings is that you should not focus entirely on rankings. Fit is very important. We want to make sure that although we are a highly regarded institution, that our students are having a wonderful experience on our campus as well. So feel free to peruse your choice, QS, US News, or Times Higher Ed, but make sure that at the end of the day, you're looking at the quality of the program and what you're going to get out of it. I'm going to hand this over to Kirsty.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm so pleased to be joining you today. One of the most compelling things about BU, I think, is that we are a major research institution, and for students who are interested in engaging in research, BU is a wonderful place to do that. We in the College of Engineering are a major contributor to the overall research that goes on at BU. And there is a large part of that research is what we call translational, which means that we are working directly on early stage research that will then be converted into commercialized products with companies, and those companies engage with us over a range of ways, including through our interdisciplinary research centers. There's also a number of facilities here that we'll talk about as well, but for students who wish to be research active, there really is a wonderful set of opportunities for you here. And part of that is also the facilities that students have access to over the course of their education here. There are too many research facilities and labs and centers to speak about individually here, but please know that no matter what area you may be interested in and what program of study you may be engaged in, there will be access to facilities that provide the opportunity for a lot of hands-on work outside of research. For instance, here in engineering, we have a number of facilities, including our Engineering Product Innovation Center. This is the largest makerspace on a college campus in the country. And of course, the top right of your screen, we're very excited about the opening of our new Center for Computing and Data Sciences, which will house the new converging disciplines of math, statistics, and computer science. We also have a focus in robotics here, both in the College of Engineering, but across other disciplines, and a number of facilities that support active hands-on research, as well as project-based learning in the robotics area.
Great. So just before we move on to the next stage of the session, I'm going to come in and quickly do a poll. So a lot of you are posting questions. Great to see that. Please keep posting your questions in the Q&A section. The ones in the chat box, we will try and take some, but if you can, majority of the questions be posted in the Q&A section. That's the right place to go ahead. I'm going to do a quick poll. There's nearly 350 of you here now in the room. You shall see a poll coming up on your screen in just a minute. What do you find most intimidating about making an application? And this, is for us to get a gauge as Christy and Mark talk more about the different components of the application. This will really help them cater to your questions as well. So please go ahead. We're going to keep the poll on for another 30 seconds. There's about 100 of you who've already answered. So please keep looking at the poll. It'll take just a quick minute. Your options are, so the question is, what do you find most intimidating about the application itself? Is it writing the statement of purpose? Is it securing the right letter of recommendation? Is it getting a good enough GRE score for your dream school? Is it securing a good enough IELTS or TOEFL score? Is it arranging the transcripts and other documentation, or is it something else? We've got nearly 200 of you responding, which is great. We will close the poll in less than 10 seconds. Okay, and here we go. So brilliant. The results should be up on your screen. So nearly 45% of you spoke about the statement of purpose, which is great because a lot of that is going to be covered today. About 24% of you spoke about your GRE scores. 11% spoke about letter of recommendations. Between testing, there were 12% of you that spoke. There was 6% of you that spoke about IELTS, and there's another 6% of you that spoke about documentation in general. And another 6% that was slightly unsure or have other aspects that they would like to, that they find intimidating as well. But great, with this, Christy, Mark, back to you guys. Again, lastly, for everyone attending, it's a pleasure to have you all here. For any questions that you have, please post them into the Q&A section.
Awesome. So very quickly, these are very basic application components, the things that all of us look at when we're looking at applications: the academic components, transcripts, standardized testing, research, if applicable, depending on the program that you're applying to. And we're going to dive into the personal qualities, but I know a lot of you have GRE and IELTS and TOEFL concerns, so I can address that very briefly. There are no minimums, and I know that's shocking, but we don't look for a minimum GRE. Some programs don't even require them. So you can use test optional as an option as well. So although it can be intimidating, obviously the better your score, the better your chances. That's not the end all be all of the application. And we are going to dive into the personal qualities a little bit more. There we go. So Kirsty, if you want to handle some of these, and we've sort of tracked questions that we typically get and things that we want you to know. So I'll hand it over to Kirsty.
Yeah, so thank you, Mark. What we want to do is talk a little bit about some of the components and what makes a strong personal statement, and give you some examples of what looks like a strong personal statement, and also share some information about what not to do, so that you can prepare the best possible personal statement. So the first thing that we wanted to talk with you about is, the students will sometimes say, should I prepare a general statement of purpose? And what we mean by that is a statement of purpose that you can use for multiple applications to multiple schools. And the answer is you can do that, but we would strongly advise that you do not if you wish to get into a strong program of your choice, like one of the programs at Boston University. Your personal statement is really your opportunity to provide some context for your application, and to give us an opportunity to understand who you are and what your motivations are for applying to BU and to the program that you have chosen. What's important to understand here is that you need to make sure that you include a number of components in your statement of purpose. And what I like to say to students is, you really need to address 3 questions in your statement of purpose. One is, what is it that's motivating you to apply to this program? What is driving your interest in this particular program that you have chosen to apply to? Secondly, what is it that you want to study in this program? Share some information about what it is within the electrical and computer engineering program that you may have chosen that is compelling you to apply. Is it that you want to focus on software or hardware? Are you interested in cybersecurity? Are you interested in motion planning? What is it that's driving you to study here, and to share why this program may be a good fit for you? So it shows us that you have taken the time to learn about the program, to learn about the curriculum, to learn about the faculty who are providing the coursework here, and to address how this program may be a good fit for you. And then thirdly, we want students to share with us what they want to do with this degree. How do you intend for this degree to help you in your post-graduate life. And maybe it means that you choose to continue to study. Maybe you're considering further graduate study in a PhD program, for instance, or maybe you're completely focused on starting your career or advancing a career that you may already have launched. Tell us how this degree should help you achieve those goals at the end of your time of study here. Mark, I think you were going to address the number 3.
Yep. The other thing I was going to add is what not to include.
Right. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Honestly, one of the things that we see often are students trying to explain away things like bad grades, or leads right into what should I do about the shortcomings in my academics and in my personal statement. Save it for another aspect of the application. We ask for additional information. You can submit another document that says, here are some of the challenges that I faced in my classes. We understand a lot of you may have been impacted negatively by COVID as well, and we are humans and we understand what our students went through. So it is perfectly acceptable for students to address that. But what you should not do is dwell on the bad stuff in the statement of purpose. We want to fall in love with who you are. We want to have you give us reasons to like you and to present those to the admissions committee. So we are looking for students to spend their time addressing other things other than academic issues and shortcomings. The same holds through for the length of your essay. Does a lengthy essay reflect a high level of interest in the program? No, it does not. If you don't spend time curtailing your responses and writing your statement to address the questions that we ask, but also the things that Kirsty pointed out, then it's a wasted opportunity. And if our faculty members have to pour through 4 or 5 or 8 pages of an essay, they may miss things that are very important and may be vital to the reasons why you should be admitted. However, if you're muddling that in with a very lengthy essay, you are going to miss the mark. So that is something that I will warn students about. So handing it back to Kirsty, can admissions committees really gauge fit from the essay?
Yeah, and just to emphasize what Mark said, it is really all about quality and not quantity. That is what, if we leave you with one thing here, please remember, it is the quality of what you write, not the length of the document itself. And, in terms of fit, yes, we can learn so much from your personal statement because it really gives us an opportunity to understand how you see yourself and your fit for our program, and what it is about our program that you find compelling, and aspects of our program that you believe that you can take advantage of to really build a master's program that's customized, if you will, to your particular areas of interest. So yes, our admissions committees can really understand from what you write whether this program is going to be a good fit for you and it be able to address your goals for your master's study. So we mentioned that we wanted to share some examples to help all of you think through what your own personal statement should look like or should include. And so here we have a statement of purpose written by a student who is applying to a master's program in the College of Engineering. And what I want to point out here is that the student takes the time to share some information about themselves, so their personal background, where they've come from, the kinds of experiences that they've had that have become the motivation for wanting to learn more and to go back to school and to earn a master's degree to focus on those areas of interest that the student wants to dive into more deeply. The student really takes the opportunity also to share their knowledge of the field, to address the particular area of study that they're interested in, and the experiences that they have had that have shaped that particular drive to learn more about these things. And the other thing in this statement is that the student really takes us through one of their experiences working on a product and shares with us that they weren't able to make it work. You know, that despite all of their best efforts, they weren't able to get to the end goal, and what that meant to them, and how that failure allowed them to sort of reconstitute their motivation and to focus on new areas that they may want to address. So this particular statement really gives us a very strong insight into who the student is, what they want to study, and how they see this master's degree addressing their goals going forward.
And here we have another example similar to the engineering student, where it's an engaging piece of writing. I want to know more about the student. It's deeply personal. I feel like I'm getting to know who they are, what they're looking to delve into, and why. It also highlights that they know what they're talking about. A lot of this has to do with your command of the lexicon. What is it about your field that makes it special? And can you articulate it in such a way that someone who's unfamiliar with it will still understand and will still back you up and say, you know, this person gets what they're talking about. This is easy to digest. This is something that I can read very quickly and know that this student is someone I want in the classroom. There's a wonderful aspect of the perspective and their journey. You can absolutely spend time developing this, but also it shows the development of knowledge, and it shows why at this stage in their life, a master's degree is the right fit for them. And also finally, intellectual curiosity. We always want to see it. We always want students who are going to ask deeper questions. We want students who are going to dig into our labs. We mentioned how many of them there are. So it's for students to take those opportunities, but it's for them to also highlight in their personal statements how they will do so. And that's something that we like to see as well. So we are going to get away from the personal statements for a little bit. And we're going to talk about resumes versus CVs. We see a lot of students who submit a curriculum vitae, usually very lengthy, and we will have some examples of this, but we want to highlight that for a lot of our master's applicants, a resume is a perfectly acceptable, concise document that will highlight all of the important aspects and attributes of that applicant to us. So what should you include in your resume? You don't necessarily need the objective to attend graduate school. We know that. That's what the application tells us. We don't necessarily need to see all of the things you've done since high school. We know you've accomplished a lot, which is why you're attending a wonderful university. You can shave that down to what have you done in college, university, and beyond. If you do have professional experience, you can still fit that in 1 to 2 pages max. So this is something that we will hammer home because a lot of students need to figure out, like, what is the difference here? So I'm gonna ask Kirsty to weigh in as well on what should be included in the resume.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. We expect that those of you who are looking at BU have probably got a long list of accomplishments. What's important is to make sure that your resume provides a list of the things that are most relevant to the study that you are hoping to move into in our programs. So what we want to see is your academic program, obviously we know that. We have your transcript that can be at the top of your resume. We want to see any kind of work experience that you've had, particularly any kind of internships or work experience that's related to the area that you may be studying. And you should share perhaps the particular skills that you may have developed over the course of that internship or work experience. In your academic program, if you were a member of a team or that you led a team in projects that may have been related to, again, the area that you want to study, some detail about the projects that you undertook and what your role in those projects may have been, but just a few bullet points. there. Similarly, any research that you may have engaged in your undergraduate program as well, that again, to show, particularly if you're interested in having a research active master's program, that research and your experience in a lab is going to be particularly important as we consider students for opportunities in the various labs that we have across the university as well. And then of course, any, if you've, things like clubs and things are going to be less important unless you've been engaged in clubs that are sort of related to the field. Again, so here at BU, we have a number of engineering related clubs, the Rocket Club, the Robotics Club. Obviously, students who've been engaged in some of those clubs and who are looking for a graduate opportunity have an opportunity to share more information about the activities that they may have been engaged in the Rocket Club. In fact, our Rocket Club has just last year launched a rocket that went higher than any other rocket that's been launched by civilians actually in the country. And so that was a pretty exciting thing that a student was involved in. So any of those kinds of things as well. Again, concise is the word here. We don't want a 10-page CV that lists every single thing that you've been doing. Make sure that you curate your resume to focus on the things that are going to support the reasons why you should be considered a good fit for this program. And I think too, the other thing is to just mention that last bullet point, which is, should the resume be tailored to the program that I am applying to? And the answer is, of course, yes. That is absolutely, just in the way that you would tailor your statement of purpose, you need to do the same thing with your resume.
Absolutely. That was what I was going to mention as well, because if I launched a rocket, that would be like one giant bullet point successfully. But what I wanted to highlight here is that you can highlight your educational achievements, you can talk about your research. If you don't have work experience, a lot of students feel like they are automatically denied because they don't have real world experience. So you can learn a lot and you can do a lot as an undergraduate student. And what I like here, it's the list of all of the research that this applicant has undertaken and some of the technical skills that they have developed as well. And we will see a lot of students who will share this, particularly because many of our programs in STEM require advanced knowledge, typically, be it coding, be it certain platforms or software. However, it is important to highlight those things. And if this were captured in a 3 or 4 page document, and we will share one of those examples as well, we may miss it. And I hate to admit it, but we can't always catch everything. So it is very important to highlight these things and to make sure that you are succinctly summarizing how you have gotten to this stage, what you've done, and why you would be a good match for the program, because it picks up where this resume leaves off. Unlike my cursor, apparently. There we are.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is someone we admitted, though. So it's not, if this is your style, that's totally fine. But this is a 3-page resume where I don't know where my eyes want to go, but they certainly don't know what's important, and they don't know what's the most important because it's not as highlighted. So here you have skills, you have hobbies, you have languages. All of these things are wonderful, but I'm pretty sure that buried in the coursework and the workshops is the guts of why we want to take the student, and that feeling of this is why we want to admit the student. However, when it's muddled, when it's hidden, it's sort of like an investigation on behalf of the reader, and we can't be trusted to get to the right conclusion. So this is something that I would say, were this to be presented in a 1 to 2 page resume format, we probably would have garnered those highlights a lot faster and made our decision a lot easier. So just something to consider.
Yeah, and again, I think that this is a resume of a successful engineering student who was admitted to our program. And I think that, again, to Mark's point here, what we're looking for is concise and easy to read, and that the most important points that you feel support your application to the particular program of study that you're applying to are very easy to identify. So they're at the top. And again, also I want to also emphasize work experience, at least for our engineering programs, is not a prerequisite. It is not necessary that every student who's successfully admitted to our program has had a work experience or an internship experience. Many of the students who come into our program have not had an actual corporate experience, but they may have engaged in many things within their undergraduate institution, including clubs, including lab research. We want to see that up top at the high point of your resume, so that it's easy to identify and helps us understand what you've been doing outside of just going to classes. And that's really what this is about. We want to know what else you've been doing besides attending classes at your undergraduate institution. And if there is work experience there, we want to know about it, but it's not essential. I think the other thing that this resume pulls out is leadership. And I think that for students, particularly who want to engage in research, maybe here at BU, as somebody who can identify the fact that they have led a research project or led a team that's worked on a particular kind of project, can be very compelling to our faculty who are reviewing these applications. And then finally, the fact that the student identifies their skills and puts them into categories here. And of course, what we would expect is those categories would directly align with the program of study that this student is considering. So here the student talks about the skills that they've developed in the manufacturing area, and also different software platforms that they're familiar with.
So we realize that we can only pack so much in the amount of time that we have given, and B, that you are not in control of what is stated in your letter of recommendation. However, we're hoping to give you guys some tips on where you can stand out, what you can do, and how you can approach this. So Kirsty, who should students ask to write their recommendation letters, and why don't we hop into that?
Yeah, let's do this. And I know that our time is short here, so we'll be very concise. So who do you want to write your letter of recommendation? You want professionals or academics who know you well. That's the first point. We want people who can speak to your qualities that translate into success in graduate school. So you should be thinking about people in your academic program, professors, who can address a set of skills that are compelling for graduate study, including things like your work ethic, your intellectual curiosity, your dependability, your persistence, your perseverance, those kinds of people that can address those qualities. And how do you approach these recommenders? Well, how do you approach these recommenders is to make sure that you give them plenty of time to write a quality letter for you. So don't go and ask a recommender, 2 weeks before the application is due to write your recommendation. You need to be planning ahead and identifying recommenders who may write good letters for you. And really, you should be helping these recommenders write these letters. So making sure that you're providing your recommenders with background information, hand them your CV or your resume so that they have a sense of what other things that you may have been doing that they're not aware of, that they can weave into their letter of recommendation. Mark, do you want to address the next couple of things?
Yeah, the other thing that I would add to that in terms of helping your recommender write a good letter, maintain a little brag sheet, things that you've done really well in, exams that you aced where everyone else struggled, or study groups that you've started. What have you done that's above and beyond what a typical student who gets a good grade would do? because that would be very helpful on the academic front. On the professional front, if you've worked on a project, if you've solved particular problems, those are things that they should be reminded of. We do not have a preference regarding academic letters versus professional ones. Certain programs will ask for one of each, others will not. So it's important for you to align with what the program is asking for and to supply the right letters of recommendation. But if you are a professional and you've been out of school for some years, we don't expect that you will have maintained relationships with your professors for, 5 years, for instance. In that case, multiple professional experience letters will suffice. Does your employer have to submit a letter on your behalf? No. And for some students, this is a little uncomfortable. They don't want to necessarily tell their employer, hey, I'm looking to leave. So it's perfectly acceptable not to ask your letter, not to have to ask an employer for a letter of recommendation. However, if this is someone that knows you very well, if this is someone who supervised you on projects and can attest to your strength in those roles, then you may want to consider having a private conversation with them. And Kirsty, can you handle the last one?
Yes. So can my friend or family member write a letter as well? The answer to that is a resounding no. That kind of a letter may be appropriate in other circumstances, but it is not what we're looking for in a letter that supports your application to graduate school.
Excellent.
Great. So just very quickly, a couple of examples again about this is a engineering student who got a letter from an employer. They were an intern at this company, and so their supervisor wrote this letter. And again, this is very succinct. It addresses what the student did in their internship and how well they did it. What I liked particularly is that this supervisor actually talks a little bit about how the student was able to handle problems and setbacks, I think they refer to, and that they were able to pivot. These are all incredibly important attributes for success in graduate school, and also their strength in problem solving as well. So this is a really strong letter from a professional supporting the application.
This is also a little different. This is from an internship, and you can see some similarities in the insight that they provide with someone who has been working as well. The other thing to highlight here is, although they were from a different major than the intended program, this still addresses their strength for that program and also the skills that are applicable to the master's degree that they want to pursue. So even if you are approaching your graduate school applications from a major that doesn't exactly line up perfectly, it is possible to still craft an application that will defend whether or not you deserve to be in that program. And usually the answer, when done well, is yes.
Okay, students who are interested in perhaps coming into graduate school and being research active, or being part of a lab, or perhaps completing a master's thesis. Letters from research professors, professors that you've worked with in labs, can be incredibly important to support your application. And that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at a letter written by a professor who supervised a student in a lab. And so it provides information about what it is that the student worked on, the accomplishments of that student. It provides very specific information about what the student did in the lab. And they've actually sort of, at the end, really talked about why the student might be a good fit for a lab at BU. So it's an excellent letter to support a student who has research goals in their master's program.
And then there are also short letters, which I know sometimes students think, well, can a short letter be good? Yes, it can. Sometimes we appreciate the conciseness, and faculty can relate to their own, or they're like, I don't have as much time, but I do want to highly recommend this student. There's also the importance of adaptability and curiosity and personal qualities that you don't necessarily get And if you are working on a project, you can still tap into all of these things to make sure that you could stand out. So it is absolutely okay if you've worked on a project to get a letter of recommendation from someone who has seen those qualities firsthand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then finally, this is an academic letter of recommendation. So this is from a professor who knows the student, who has had a long relationship with the student. The student has actually been a TA in their class, and then also worked in their lab. And again, you know, it's important for those of you who have not been out of school too long, having an academic letter of recommendation as one of your letters is definitely preferable, particularly for students who want to have a more research active experience in their program. What's compelling about this particular letter is that it's very clear that the professor has a very long-term relationship with the student. They know them well, and that they have been able to identify the different attributes that the student has brought both to TAing and into the lab as well. So this is again, another very strong letter. And we understand that you don't have control over what is written, but as Mark said earlier, the more information that you can provide to your recommenders, the better chance you have of getting a letter like this from them.
Excellent. So at this point, we'll hand it over to Paris.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you both for the lovely presentation. Even I'm tempted now to start an application. So that tells you how informative this has been. Great. So there have been several questions. There's over 70 questions that we have right now. I'm going to try and concise them where I can to make sure that we can cover as much as we can. But first up, there have been a few questions around the application fee waiver. And Mark, if you'd like to quickly address that.
Sure. So for those of you who would like application fee waivers, please email our offices. We are going to give you our contact information. These are individuals, so there isn't a code. But if you email our offices, we will give you information on how to proceed with that process.
Great, thank you for that. The first question, and there have been a few people who've asked about this. Now, when it comes to India, one of the peculiar challenges for non-engineering students in particular is the 3-year versus 4-year degree. So there have been a lot of questions around, for different programs, are there options for candidates that graduate out of the 3-year degree to be considered applying for a US STEM degree? If both of you want to address this one by one, that'd be great.
Yeah, do you want to start, Mark?
Sure. So because all of our decisions are made by faculty in each department, unfortunately, this varies by department. So there are some departments that prefer to see the 4-year degree and others that are okay with the 3-year degree. If it's not explicitly stated on their website, we're happy to answer those specifically. But for perspective, many of our departments do like seeing that 4th year just because it adds validity to the strength of what you've learned during your academic career. However, we will accept the 3-year degree for many of our programs as well. So unfortunately, it is a case by case depending on the department. Kirsty, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say that generally engineering accepts the 3-year degree. There may be exceptions to that in particular programs, as Mark has indicated, but there's no reason why a student with a 3-year degree should not apply to the engineering master's program.
Great. And just a note for students, just a little bit more broadly about the US, there are several schools who will look at a WEP equivalency. So if you have an opportunity to get your degree validated, you can see, especially for 3-year degrees, if you are an honors student, that also helps. But like Christy and Mark have said, there is no harm in applying. There are different programs, have different requirements, feel free to reach out to each school or each program and learn more about it. Mark, Christy, do you want to talk a little bit briefly about the intakes? Because there have been some questions around that too. What time of year?
Numbers?
No, just what time of year does an intake start? And are there two intakes, one intake?
Yeah, so many of our programs are exclusively fall only, which are usually late August as the start date. There are a handful of programs at the College of Arts and Sciences that do have a spring intake as well. Those would be indicated on our website if you look at the deadline information. So again, very few programs, a few of our economics programs, but not all of them. And our computer science program, at times it's case by case. So those will be indicated on the deadline information on our website.
Fantastic.
Yeah, same for engineering. Our main intake is fall. We're September start, and our application deadlines, our application is open now for fall 2023, and students can apply anytime between now and March 15th is our final deadline. A few of our programs also have a spring intake, our robotics program, for instance, our mechanical engineering. And again, like Mark said, all of that information is on our application deadlines and requirements page.
Fantastic. There have been some questions around the cybersecurity program or offerings that BU may have around cybersecurity. Do one of you want to elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there are programs at many different schools at BU that deal with cybersecurity. At the College of Arts and Sciences, we do have cybersecurity as one of the options in our computer science department. So that is something that students can apply to directly and be evaluated for. But there's also one at the Metropolitan College, which we don't have a colleague joining us from. Kirsty, do you guys have cybersecurity in engineering?
Yes, so students can study cybersecurity in our master's program in electrical and computer engineering. In fact, it's one of the focus areas that students can choose in that degree program.
Yeah, and there will be additional program opportunities in our Center for Computer and Data Science as well. So more to come on that.
Great. And just for all the participants here, if you have some questions around does BU offer a particular course or not, please feel free to look at their website. A lot of that information will be there. I want to try and use the rest of the time that we have for today to try and ask more questions that are pertaining to the application process where eligible. And with that, I'm going to go on to my next question. This is so there are several questions around testing, and I know Mark, Christy, you mentioned that for certain programs testing may be optional. Do you have any guidance on how someone can think about testing more broadly in the application process?
Yeah, can I let me just jump in there for a second, because we do require GRE testing for our master's programs in engineering from students who don't have a US degree or will not earn their degree in the US. So the GRE is just one part of the application, and I want to emphasize that it is never a make or break component of the application. But for students who may have, say, a mixed transcript, for instance, maybe they struggled a little bit here and there, a strong GRE score can certainly benefit your application in that case. Students who have an outstanding transcript have done extremely well in their programs. Generally, the GRE isn't going to be weighted as heavily in those cases because we want to see evidence of strong grades and performance in your academic program. So while for the majority of students who are maybe attending this webinar, that GRE will be required from you, it's important to know sort of the role that it plays in your application, and that it is not going to be the one thing that's going to make the difference between being admitted and not being admitted.
Yeah, and what I will add to that, a lot of students feel like we are being very secretive about our average GRE and our average TOEFLs. We're not. It's just that that is meaningless information because it really is a case by case. You are evaluated in a holistic manner, and honestly, having a 178 math doesn't really mean much if your grades aren't there, or if your letters of recommendation say, please find someone else, this student's not that great. So, we do see examples of this, which is why we are less secretive and more purposefully hiding that information, because again, it is very holistic and each application is reviewed individually.
Okay. Talking about testing, there was also a question around Duolingo for the English language test. Does BU accept that?
We accept it at the College of Arts and Sciences. There are a few units that don't, so it's important to double check.
Yes, and engineering is one of the units that does not accept Duolingo. So TOEFL and the IELTS are the only options if you want to apply to the engineering program.
Great. And for everyone listening in, this is a great example of why you need to speak to each department, because there may be within the same university different programs that have different requirements as well. Mark, there are some questions around the Masters in Economics. Do you want to take a quick minute to talk about that program so students attending
Sure.
can learn about that?
Absolutely. The economics program is one of our larger programs. It draws students from a ton of different backgrounds. You would think everyone has to study economics. That's not necessarily true. The faculty do like to see certain advanced coursework in economics, but there are students every year who have a genuine interest that developed later. What we recommend is that students look for the prerequisites, not just for economics, but this is in general. If there are prerequisites that you didn't have time to take, or you, based on your program, weren't allowed to, you can sometimes cover those with Coursera courses or things that are available to you that wouldn't necessarily be on your transcript. So just bear that in mind. In terms of the program, there's a wonderful push to mentoring and to research opportunities. So students have the ability to link up directly with faculty members. And at the end of what we hope will be a wonderful experience, they can choose to either do scholarly work, they can choose to do a project, and they can choose to do a different capstone. So in general, it's a wonderful program, very popular, and 2 of the 3 options in the economics program do allow applications for the spring.
Great. Christy, I'll give you the next question, which is from Prachi, who says, we've spoken, and I'm going to break this question up. We've spoken about the statement of purpose and bits that students can think about while standing out. But what happens in a scenario if they do not have research papers to support their story and are fresh graduates, but are keen on research-oriented programs? Does it add as does it become a disadvantage of any form?
Oh, that's a great question. And no, it is not a disadvantage. We recognize that not all students have the same opportunities in their undergraduate programs. And so what we want to see is that students who have had those opportunities have taken advantage of them, but recognizing that not everybody can have those experiences. So what we're really looking for is a student's aptitude to do research. We want to see somebody who is capable of doing research, that's motivated and passionate about research, but maybe it hasn't necessarily had that experience. So again, in their letters of recommendation, we want to see people address some of those attributes, right? A student who has a strong intellectual curiosity, that asks great questions, who is motivated, who is persistent, those are all qualities that are essential for success in a research active program.
Fantastic. And there are a couple of other people who've asked similar questions. Mithali, I hope this sort of answers your question as well. You had a similar question around the computer science program. There have also been some questions around non-comp science students wanting to apply for comp science programs. Mark, any tips or advice on that?
Yeah, we see it often, actually engineering being one of them, and that's totally fine. You don't need to be a computer science major to pursue our program. This is where having those Coursera courses to fill in any gaps comes into play, however, because the computer science faculty want to make sure that there's a strong foundation to build on. So envision competing in a classroom with students who may have studied computer science as an undergrad major and may have done research. We want to make sure that you'll keep your own and you'll do well with the speed and depth of the program. So it is probably a good idea to look at some of the prerequisite coursework that would be required, but also to look for outlets that would help augment your undergraduate career so far.
Fantastic. I'll move slightly away from this, talking about the LOR. And this is probably quite specific, but just because this has come up 3 times, I'll still ask it. Can a supervisor, because in certain universities at the moment in India, professors or supervisors end up using their personal email address, which is not an institutional email address. Is that something that is allowed while submitting an LOR?
It's not preferred, but as long as it's someone that we can verify, as long as there's contact information. I have been known to cold call people at night here, so morning there, to verify those personal email addresses. We know there's fraud out there. We know that students, everyone is not as well-intentioned as many of the people in this conversation right now. So we want to make sure that we are doing a just process when it comes to taking people at their word, and personal email addresses kind of pull away from whether or not we can trust it.
Okay. Christy, I'll give you the next question here, which is around, is it advisable to address leadership achievement if we have worked in an organizing committee for conferences? Does it, and this is sort of connected to the LOR, does it affect much if the LOR is from an academic mentor that does not belong to your department?
So leadership, I think we talked a little bit about that in when we were reviewing LORs. Leadership can be a nice thing to pull out on your resume. And certainly any recommender who has observed you or in fact supervised you in a leadership role, that would be an important thing for that recommender to highlight in their letter of recommendation. As far as the second point of your question, an academic who is not a member of the department, I'm not exactly sure what that means. It would suggest that the academic, if that's an academic reference, it would suggest that they are affiliated in some way with an institution. If it's not your undergraduate institution, but you have worked directly with this person or had some kind of experience that can be helpful to your application, that would be fine.
Yeah, I think
I'll add to that though, because sometimes students have like academic advisors that may not know what they are like in the classroom. So there will always be heft added to an honest conversation about what a student's like in a classroom versus not having them in that role, if I can understand that question in that frame.
Yep. And Mark, the next one's for you. And I'm not 100% sure, but I'll still ask this. Is there an integrated MA Economics plus an MBA program at BU?
There is, yes, there is, but you have to apply to both programs independently, and you have to be admitted to both programs independently.
Right. And the GRE, I'm guessing, therefore, is mandatory for that program.
Absolutely. For all of our economics programs, we do require the GRE. So, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
And if I could mention too that there is a dual program in engineering as well that gives you a master's in product design and manufacture and an MBA. And as Mark said, same thing, you have to apply to both schools.
Okay.
Yeah, we're very collaborative.
That's useful. There have also been several questions around scholarships and funding. If both of you want to give some advice around that, that'll be useful as well. And then I'll come in about an opportunity we're offering through SEED to students as well, but I'll give you the stage first.
Kirsty, scholarship?
Yeah, so all of our students who are admitted to our program are considered for merit-based scholarship. We don't offer any need-based scholarship from our college itself, but we do offer merit-based scholarship. And that merit-based scholarship is awarded based on the recommendations of our faculty who are reviewing all of the applications and making the admission decisions. And that scholarship can range anywhere from as little as a couple of $1,000 all the way up to potentially half tuition for students. Students also have the opportunity to work on campus as well. We're a big campus and we employ a lot of people. So student employment has a lot of positions that students can work part-time and also try to defray some of the costs of their education.
Yep, and we have similar scholarships as well. They're all listed on our website, and there are some that are independent of the university that are also listed there too. So feel free to do a little additional research on our website for more info on scholarships.
Great. There are several more questions, but I want to pause for a second to ask both of you, are we okay to extend for another 15 minutes? Does your schedule allow that?
Absolutely.
Yep, I'll just send a message.
Okay, great. So Christy, while Mark's getting ready, I'll give you the next question. CPT. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the options that students have via CPT and OPT as well, maybe?
Yes, so students, many of the students in the College of Engineering make great use of their curricular practical training opportunities and choose to complete internships over the course of their master's study, and CPT allows them to do that. They can have a related work experience, and of course, you know, one of the things I think Mark mentioned early on in this presentation is Boston. We're one of the top universities because of our location, and that's not the least of which is because this is a tech hub in the country. Second densest tech sector in the United States is right here in Boston. So we have an incredible ecosystem of tech companies here right in our backyard, and students who come into our program, international students, can use their CPT allowance to complete an internship over the course of their master's program. And then of course, OPT, all of our programs qualify for the STEM extension. So students have a nice long period of time to be able to use their OPT, either during their master's study, if they choose to, but mostly students are using this after they complete their master's programs and to have a work experience in the United States.
Amazing. Mark, next one for you. There are some questions around medicine-related programs. Do you want to quickly highlight, you know, a couple of programs that you have in that area?
Yeah, so we do have the traditional sciences that are related. There's also biostatistics, and we do have our own medical school at Boston University and a school of public health. So one of the 17 spokes, or actually two of the 17 spokes that fall under graduate education at BU would have separate programs specific to medicine and even hospital administration and things of that nature. There are other programs that are, I would say, medicine adjacent that we offer. There are students who are looking at, for instance, clinical psychology, things like that. That's also something that falls under the umbrella. But we have a comprehensive website of graduate program opportunities at BU. So you can actually put in area of study. And if you put in like medicine, it'll spit out not just the programs at the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, but also the programs across the entire university. So yeah, there are many options available.
Great. There are quite a few questions around testing for specific programs. Is it mandatory, not mandatory? I'm going to request all of you that have posted those questions to please go up to the program profile, the program page on the BU website, and look that up. I'm conscious of the time that we're able to give today, but Viraj, Harshita, you know, any questions around that, please check the program on BU's website. That kind of information will be available on the website as well. Okay, trying to take as many more questions in the next couple of minutes that we can. There are, which one are we going to take? There are some questions around electronics and communication. Christy, if you want to mention just a little bit about opportunities that students have in that domain.
Yeah, so once again, those kinds of study opportunities would probably be found mostly in our electrical and computer engineering program. It is our largest master's program in the college, and also has a very broad range of focus areas that students can choose, with a long list of curriculum that they can opt into for each of those focus areas. So electronics and communications is another area of focus that students could choose in that particular program.
Fantastic. Another engineering one, and Mark, I'll bring you the next one. There's Tribhuvan who's asking, how is a gap year in the middle of an engineering program treated for admission? The gap was due to medical reasons. Is it important for him to mention it in the SOP, or how does the school look at this?
Yeah, so that would be a good example of a student who maybe would like to upload a separate document to their application to maybe address that specific issue rather than including it in their statement of purpose, just to make sure that the admissions committee isn't left wondering why there's this big hole in their transcript. The students should be able to provide some information about what was happening. They don't need to share personal details about the situation, but just to acknowledge that they needed to take a break from their studies, so that the faculty are aware of it as they're reviewing their application.
Fantastic. The next question, and I'm going to generalize this, Mark, and I'll bring that to you. Given that so many folks apply to very popular programs like computer science, and certain engineering programs as well. Given that the demographic is so common in terms of X number of students applying from India to similar programs, how does one really stand out? We've spoken a lot about the details of it, but and I know I have a guess about your answer, but any particular tips you want to leave students with?
I think honestly, it boils down to what do you have time to effectively change and what do you have time to effectively polish? Putting some thought into who you're asking for your letters of recommendation, doing all of those things that Kirsty and I pointed out, taking all of those little steps can make a drastic difference in this process, reminding your professors of the things that you did in their class that, particularly if you're in a large lecture, setting, they may not recall some of those contributions that you made to the classroom conversation, but it's okay to remind them of what those were. Putting together your resume and making sure that you are effectively making it concise, that you are pointing out the things that are of importance. You can't change who you are, but you can change how you are presenting who you are. So making sure that your essay, Kirsty and I were joking about some of the funny things we've seen, making sure your essay literally doesn't say, and that's why I want to go to another school, if you are personalizing it. Making sure that you are avoiding any common pitfalls. Those are things that you can still have time to do and polish before you hit submit. But when it comes to standing out, a lot of students feel like they have to do research, they have to do 20 different projects, and they have to put that all on a giant CV. And honestly, that's not the case, because we can latch on to, when there are fewer details, we can latch on to the important ones. When there are too many, we may miss the mark there. And that's unfortunately not on us.
Yeah, and very good point. And a couple of you have asked also about word count on the SOP. Christy, is there something recommended, or that's something by program that they should look at on the website as well?
Yeah, so what we generally say to students is to try and keep their statement of purpose to just a couple of pages. If they do, as Mark just suggested, and curate their statement of purpose to focus on the key things that draw a line between their accomplishments and their aptitude and the program, they shouldn't need more than a couple of pages to do that. But I would say that no more than 3 pages, because our faculty committees have a lot of applications to review, and they just can't get through all of those. And they may miss things that are important if they're on page 3.
Yeah, well said. There are some questions, Aliha and others who've asked about specific GPA requirements for multiple programs. I'm just going to say one generic statement, just in the interest of time. Firstly, I think what has been iterated is there is no minimum or ideal number. Every application is looked at holistically. So please, for details about the program, look at the program page on the website, but don't hesitate to think about a minimum GPA or a minimum GRE score when you think about applying to a specific program. If you have scored low for any particular reason, the statement of purpose is a way for you to express that to the school as well. So use the word count and the space that you have wisely as well. Last question on this side, and I know there are a few more coming in around PhDs as well. So any thoughts on fellowships and assistantships for PhD programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So for PhDs, we would definitely prefer to see a CV over a resume. So we've been hammering home the importance of being concise, but for PhD applications, we typically will look for a CV. We do offer, as part of the funding package at the College of Arts and Sciences, full tuition stipends, health insurance, and living expenses are covered as well. There are a combination of fellowships and assistantships that PhD students will find out about. For our PhDs, we also offer relocation stipends up to $3,000. So that does come in handy, particularly if you're moving with a family. And there are a lot of other opportunities that we don't have time to dive into. But at the very base, all of our PhDs are fully funded.
Fantastic.
And that would be the same with engineering. All of the PhDs are fully funded with a stipend. Their tuition is covered. Students also have the opportunity to come into our PhD programs and have a year to do rotations to decide which labs ultimately will be their home for the ensuing five years. So it's a great opportunity to really get a sense of what's going on in the college before they commit to a particular lab or area of research.
Fantastic. And I'm going to take a quick moment right now to talk about the SEED Scholarship Fund. But in the meantime, if I can request Christy and Mark to put the email address into the chat box for the application fee waiver, that'd be very useful. And here, there you go. It's on your screen for everybody looking at this. You can take a picture. You can email the relevant school and ask for an application fee waiver. About the SEED scholarships. So earlier this year, we've launched a few scholarships, one specifically for STEM leadership. We are encouraging candidates to apply for programs that for schools that we work with. So you can go onto our website. You will also receive an email following this session, which will give you more information about how to apply for the SEED scholarship. There is a pre-application for the scholarship. Once you've filled that pre-app, you will be able to submit at the next stage. Once shortlisted, you'll be asked to submit an essay, and it's an essay-based scholarship that you submit to access those scholarships. So there are a few. If any of you are from ISEC, there is an ISEC scholarship, ISEC Leadership Scholarship. If any of you are, and hopefully all of you are looking at STEM programs, so there is also a STEM Leadership Scholarship that you will be eligible for as well. But with that, I want to thank both Christy and Mark for taking time today. We've definitely gone over time, but also to all of you that are attending here today, I really hope this session today was useful and cleared most of your doubts. I know there were several more questions that were specific to either particular programs. Please take a note of Christy and Mark's email, and you are welcome to write to them and ask further questions as well. Christy, Mark, over to both of you for any closing comments as well.
Yes, thank you so much for having us here. And again, just to reiterate, I like to talk to students. I like to hear about your backgrounds. So if you do have specific questions that we didn't get to today, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at the email on the screen, and also to our enggrad@bu.edu for an application fee waiver.
Absolutely. And the only thing I will add is just given the breadth and volume of applications that we see, please don't feel like you need to email us more than once. We promise we'll get back to you. It just may not happen as quickly as you would like. So that is my fair warning. But thank you guys so much for attending our session and for being such wonderful participants. Great questions. As always, quite a pleasure.
Thank you. And for everybody attending who are still here, I want to wish you luck for your application process. If there is anything else we can help you with as well, feel free to write to us on our Instagram handle, and we'll try and answer any questions for you that we can as well. For now, good evening and have a great rest of the day. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye
Good night,
all.
everyone.